Thank you for joining us on Data Cloud Now, where we bring you the latest in all things data in business and industry. I'm joined by Tom Stuermer, Global Senior Managing Director, Data and AI at Accenture, along with Dan Waters, Vice President EMEA Partners for Snowflake. Gentlemen, such a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Tom, at Accenture, you have 9,000 clients across 120 countries. What's top of mind for your customers, and what's the data showing you?
Well, so interestingly, Ryan, we've recently done yet another CXO research project where we've interviewed over 1,000 of these CXOs. And what we're finding around data and AI in particular is that there's a significant acceleration in what's going on, right? We're finding that the data is getting bigger than ever, right? 7 petabytes a day are being generated across the globe.
Wow.
This is compared to 2.3 just in 2021. We're seeing that the data is much more complex than it had been before. It's unstructured, it's coming from more places, more endpoints, more sources. We're finding that it's also siloed no less than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's still in pockets where the truth is not necessarily known, the veracity of the data is not really known. It's also moving at a much higher velocity. The amount of data that is coming out of real-time and near real-time systems, edge use cases, things like that. We've seen in discussions with executives, about 83% of them are saying that that kind of near real-time data will be crucial for their competitive advantage over the next couple of years. But yet only 31% of them feel that their organization effectively manages that data. It's a pretty significant gap. And I would say the last point we're seeing is a dramatically increased focus on data sharing, both within enterprises, but also more interestingly, across enterprise boundaries within trading partners, and the ability to start to create networks of data sharing, both marketplaces actually inside of enterprises, as well as the ability to productize data and share it to other clients and other partners themselves. It's a pretty fascinating shift that's happened.
You know, really appreciate that global perspective. We're in London here at Snowflake's Data Cloud World Tour. I want to dive into this partnership. You know, what is the power of Accenture and Snowflake together, and how is Accenture helping to transform their clients' data ecosystem? Tom, if you'd like to kick us off.
Well, let me start. So first of all, the reasons why we find Snowflake so powerful is, first and foremost, it's cross-cloud. Every one of our clients, whether they do it on purpose or not, is a multi-cloud customer. They have pockets of data in various locations, and it simply amplifies the problem of segmentation and data silos that I mentioned earlier. The second big reason is that the ability to share in a secure and effective way with very, very tight access controls, and the ability to actually, frankly, make copies without duplicating data is a second very powerful reason why we see Snowflake as a compelling partner for us. And the last point is, as we're seeing Snowflake's ability to start to migrate apps towards the center of gravity of data has become a very powerful story around Snowpark, and around the future of where our clients are trying to go by building these data pipelines out for the future of AI, ML, and LLM. Now, within Accenture, we view that where that interlink happens is that our depth in the 20 industries that we serve very directly, where we align a significant chunk of our people towards, brings a very unique C-suite relevancy and very outcomes-oriented perspective about the ability to use data in a very deliberate way to solve very specific business challenges. And I would close out by saying the other unique dimension is what we just recently announced about this data and AI business that we are launching. We're making a $3 billion investment to scale up that business. We're going to take what is currently about 40,000 practitioners and scale that to 80,000 practitioners. And Snowflake is a key partner in that journey.
Dan, would love Snowflake's perspective as well.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ryan. Really cutting across in terms of what Tom just talked through, the investments that Accenture are making, the ability to go deep on industry solutions, speaking the language of the customer. Snowflake have invested very heavily in terms of our own vertical go-to-market and expertise. Accenture have years and years of really rich, really embedded history in really speaking the language of the customer and bringing industry-defined solutions to those customers. So really the power of that partnership to really unlock that capability that Accenture bring, unlock the scale, add in the data and AI specialization that Accenture are really doubling down on to really bring further expertise, not just in terms of the traditional use cases for Snowflake, but as we move into new markets, as we bring in new capability. We announce obviously acquisitions with Neva and Applica as we go deeper into that space with Document AI, but also in terms of Gen AI and LLMs and the capability that Snowflake and Accenture bring to our customers to really accelerate that value, accelerate time to value from a customer perspective, of course accelerating consumption for Snowflake, but also bringing together the power of the modern data stack around that in terms of the ecosystem that Accenture can bring together to really add that value to our customers. So very, very deep expertise.
And I'm so happy you mentioned Gen AI. It's top of mind for executives across the board. Tom, a topic that we've explored previously. What advice would you give to the audience on this topic, and how will Snowflake and Accenture bring the power to that Gen AI motion?
Well, so first let me emphasize, since we last talked, part of this research that we have done, in our surveys, 98% of the C-suite executives that we interviewed said that generative AI and foundational data models in particular will be a crucial competitive advantage for their business. I'm not sure who the 2% are, but the recognition is there. And so I want to amplify even more than when we talked back in June. That's the case. And what I tell all of our clients are that the large language models that sit behind generative AI, there's continued sort of potential fragmentation between the core models that are driving general generative AI and more specialized models that are really geared towards what individual businesses can do. And so the first thing I would say is fixing your digital core, getting your data into the cloud, building these secure data pipelines that help you to enable turning the data in your business into essentially programmatic, statistical responses that a generative model would create. Going back to the silos earlier, I forgot to mention a data point. 55% of the executives we interviewed cannot trace the data in their data silos from source to endpoint. So imagine if you were writing software code and you could not trace the logic of 55% of what you wrote.
Sounds terrifying.
You would not release product, right? So companies that are going down this path of using their enterprise data to train LLM models have got to fix that problem. And so we're advising them right now to really create trusted, governed data streams, building out data platforms in the cloud and essentially stabilizing their digital core to make that happen. The last point I would make is really thinking about training data. As I mentioned, instrumentation, more and more of this data is coming from edge devices, from places outside of transactional systems, unstructured, et cetera. Snowflake geared really well towards this, both in what we've got with Snowpark and some of the future releases that were announced at Summit last June. And what we're focusing on is being able to help our clients position more and more ingestion points to be able to develop this pipeline for trusted data that can drive these models in the future.
Well, gentlemen, such a pleasure having you both on Data Cloud Now. We've covered a lot, but now I want to look towards the future. What's next for Snowflake plus Accenture? Dan, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, well, further onto Tom's point there about the trust of the data core, that's absolutely critical. Snowflake's mission is really always to be enabling our customers to help them mobilize their data. Obviously, an organization's data is among their most precious assets, but to do that, really importantly, it's vital that it's secure, that it's governed, that it's absolutely, locked down in terms of the access and the governance around that data set. So Snowflake platform is focused on satisfying this from an environmental perspective. The other big focus for Gen AI and LLMs is making it simple to deploy, simple to consume, asking questions of the data in natural language really unlocks data in terms of business users being able to access when historically you would need data scientists and specialized technical resources to unlock the power of the data. So working with Accenture, working with our partner community, our mission is to really go deeper, unlock the value of the data, keep it secure and governed, and really drive business in a different way using data as the driving engine behind how you unlock that capability.
An exciting next chapter for Snowflake and Accenture. Tom, anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would add that creating solutions from the existing and future capabilities of Snowflake is one of our key focuses. Right, we are demoing here a solution that we built for retail and CPG companies around using both the data that they currently have, but also generative AI to create different forecasts based on third-party data, even just things like weather and consumption pattern changes, and being able to recommend adjustments to fulfillment, distribution, et cetera. In addition, we are building out a solution to deal with identity management for customer interactions and being able to use Snowflake as a mechanism to pull in first-party, second-party, and third-party data to be able to triangulate on individual customers, then use that to drive campaigns, et cetera. Right now, we have built that on core Snowflake. We are members of the private preview of some of the LLM capabilities, and we are actually deploying prototype cases using those tools. And we're excited about when they become generally available and we can bring out those solutions to our clients and out in the world. And then the last point I would mention is scale. We have been growing very rapidly. Like Snowflake, we have been fairly US centric. And we see tremendous growth both in Europe, frankly, as well as APJ. It's two places where we're really doubling down on our business and our practice and getting the connections and the clients in those regions who are, quite frankly, in many ways, better positioned to take advantage of Snowflake than some of our American clients are, and really leaning in on those areas and building the scale that we need.
Gentlemen, great to have your time, your insights on Data Cloud Now. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you,
Ryan. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers.
And for the audience watching, I'm Ryan Green with Data Cloud Now. I'll see you soon.